Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Hey everyone, and welcome to All Together, the Family Science Insights podcast, produced by Ellen Massell, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element, with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Dina Sargeant. Let's get started.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the show, you might remember this guest. We spoke about preparing for marriage and what to discuss with your partner prior to marriage. She is back on the show talking about the evolving term around marriage. She and her husband has also celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary last year, and I'm so excited to welcome her back onto the show, Linda Bloom. How are you going today, Linda?
I'm doing great, and I'm delighted to be here with you.
Yeah, you were back 2 years ago. It's amazing to see how much that you've grown and I've grown and the whole show has grown in the last 2 years since having you on. And now you're back talking about the evolving idea of marriage that we're sort of going into in terms of society's idea of marriage today. And I'm really excited to talk about that. Before we do, can you tell us a little bit about your role as a psychotherapist and sort of what your day-to-day client base sort of deals with in terms of marriage?
Well, I do see some individuals, but mostly I see couples because I have a specialty in treating couples. Mm-hmm. And because my husband and I have many years together working out our different styles of being in the world, we're very different. It seems to be one of our claims to fame that you can be very much yourself and different from your partner, and you can just make a big space for it to all be peacefully coexistent and learn from each other. We believe in opposites attract. When we teach our classes, we call it complements attract, and some very deep, wise knowing in us attracts us to people who are very different than we are, because there's this inner drive for mastery, to become whole, to become more than what we are. And so we gravitate to people who have strengths we don't have. And of course, we have strengths they don't have. And so the same things that magnetize us to each other drive us nuts to the infatuation wears off. And then when we get down to the mature part of love, about really listening and understanding and respecting the differences, that's when the relationship starts to really flourish and deepen and get bigger and grander.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've sort of found about marriage that a lot of clients have really tried to find their way through?
I find one of the misconceptions is that marriage is dangerous, that it's commitment is a trap. And when you look up the word commitment in the dictionary, the part of the definition is assignment to a prisoner mental hospital. And so people sometimes, not so conscious some of the time, unconscious, have a negative association with commitment. And of course, marriage is a big commitment, one of the biggest commitments we ever make. In addition to having children, which is a huge commitment, marriage is right up there. And so I think a lot of people have not only seen in their own families up close and personal divorces that were bitter and ugly, and they believe that they can avoid that bitterness and ugliness of divorce by not getting married. And so marriage is kind of going out of vogue. I think that that's a shame. I'm an old-fashioned girl. I believe in marriage. I believe that marriage is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's not for everybody, but the research is very clear. The people who are single are not as happy as the married people, and the people who are cohabitating don't have as sturdy a relationship as the married people. they have a little foot in the back door that they might leave. A lot of them do. And so marriage is a sealed container, and it can be used for great things. It does not have to be confining, like a prison cell or, something that holds you back. It can be a launching pad in your life for your own growth, for your own healing, for your creative expression, for you to be successful in your career. So to see marriage as an old-fashioned institution, an outmoded institution, I think is not accurate. I see it as needing a redefinition. Retire the old definition of marriage as being confining and refirement of the definition of marriage, of being liberating, finding freedom to be who we are. Not necessarily freedom to do everything we want to do. There are some sacrifices that need to be made in committed partnership. But freedom to become who we are, that's a big deal. I think that's the best game in town.
No, I agree. I'm very big on the marriage front as well. That's probably one of my big priorities in life as well, when it comes to marriage. I don't want a temporary thing. And I feel like marriage is a very solidified partnership that I really believe in. Me personally, I know, like you said, it doesn't work for everybody, but for me personally, that's how I've always seen it. Now, thank you so much for that introduction. Before we get deeper into it, I'd love to get to know some of your interests and maybe some recommendations by hopefully asking the easier questions today so we can get to the harder questions a little bit later on. Now, to start off with, do you have a favorite book that you could share with us?
I really like The Hero Within, and it's Jungian based. And it's about the archetypal journey from the woman's point of view. So this is not a damsel in distress being rescued by the hero from the villain. This is hero, hero, hero. Everybody in the hero's journey, these are the companions that support each other, no matter what their gender. And everybody's a hero in that story. You may have formidable challenges. You may have difficult people that you're in to face with. You may have to face some of the very dark parts of yourself, not the evildoers out there, the inner shadowy parts. Mm-hmm. But Karen Pearson wrote a beautiful book about the hero within, and I have a deep admiration for her book.
No, that's amazing. I really like that idea of everyone's sort of the hero. And I think the whole idea of damsel in distress as well, we sort of use that so often as a fallback, especially for the way that I've grown up, sort of seeing that's okay, I don't have to do anything. The guy can do majority of things. I just have to sit there. So I've had to learn to change that mindset and also become that person myself and sort of save myself, but also allowing the balance between, okay, there are some things that I don't want to do that my partner can handle, or some things my partner doesn't want to do that I can handle. So trying to find that balance within as well, I think that's such an important thing.
It's such an important thing, particularly for women, because when we are socialized as females, we grow up in a different culture. We get more permission to pay attention to well-being of relationship, to be in touch with our feelings, to be expressive about our feelings, to be empathic and compassionate. Men have a handicap still. We're well into the 21st century, but there still is some socialization with men about big boys don't cry, not to be so in touch with their feelings, particularly the vulnerable ones, sadness, fears, and anxieties, loneliness. And I feel that in the new model of marriage and the new model of committed partnership, there needs to be egalitarianism. What that requires of women is to step into the leadership role in the areas where they shine and they're strong. And because they have grown up getting more permission to be in touch with feelings and expressive of feelings and empathic and terrific listeners. Do you know they need to be in the leadership role at least half of the time to have a great relationship?
Yeah.
So that shared power is a critical requirement.
Yes, no, that's very true. Now, when it comes to movies, do you have a favorite movie that you could share with us?
Yes, I recently saw Maestro.
Okay.
And Leonard Bernstein was a gifted and talented musician and conductor. Bradley Cooper plays him in the movie. Bradley Cooper wrote the movie, directed the movie, and plays Leonard Bernstein and stars in the movie. And he is an intensely creative and passionate married man. They had a very creative relationship, especially for their time, and they were quite open about it. It kind of worked for them. It's not a model of relationship I would prize, but they did support each other with a growth model. And so I enjoyed the movie tremendously. The music is beautiful and the acting is exquisite, and I would highly recommend it.
Okay, I'm glad you recommend it. I haven't seen it, but I've always wanted to see it, especially because Bradley Cooper is one of my favorite actors. So if you're recommending it, then I'm adding it to my list to go see.
You'll enjoy it.
Now, I hope those questions have hopefully warmed you up to answer the harder questions that we have for us today.
I'm warm.
Okay, good. I'm warm too. Now, I know that everyone has a very different definition as to what family means to them and also what sort of creates a family. From your expertise, either professionally or even personally, of what you learned, do you have a definition of family that you could share with us?
Family is our confidants, those people that we can really be ourselves with, that we don't have to put on an image, a persona, the looking good self, that we can be real with. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're our blood relations. Some of our family, they can't take us full force. They don't have room for it. But we might have our family of choice, the people that we pick. And I have people who are passionate about personal growth, like I am, in a way that some of the family members aren't. And so I can talk to them about being real, about being authentic, about honoring shadow, about letting the image down. And I am blessed to have a large number of people in my life. And I feel that they're my jumping off place to risk in life and take on challenges, sometimes tough challenges, like writing books is a long-term committed challenge. And they're also my safe house. Do you know that if you think about the war zone, when the rockets are going off and the bombs are blowing up, they are my place where I can come back to when I need R&R, when I need to rest and relax, when I need to feel protected and safe and just have some quiet time with them. And I am deeply grateful that my husband is my best friend, that I have an exquisite women's group, and that I have as many family of choice that I have, many of whom have an adventurous spirit, not only to travel with me, to go to foreign lands. I'm going to Morocco for the first time on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
A friend of mine. My husband's not going, and I'm very enthusiastic about this trip. But not only are they willing to go to foreign lands, but these closest confidants are psychonauts. They go inside. The astronauts go out in space. The psychonauts are very interested in the inner life because we relate in an intimate way with each other. That emotional intimacy comes from being in touch with our deepest feelings, our deepest visions of our life, our deepest, fears and sense of insecurity and inadequacy, but that we have the safety and trust with each other to share at that level.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important thing. That's honestly, growing up, I feel like it's now being close to 30, being a few years till I'm 30, there's that idea of I'm really glad that if anything that I found those friendship group that I know that I can really be myself with. And I found a couple of friends in my life where I know that if push comes to shove, if I'm going through anything, if I'm going through a really hard time, they're the people that I don't have to fake being myself around. I mean, some family for me, I'm still having to put on a facade and put on a straight face and put on a brave face. But they're the people that I can literally just be like, I don't want to think anything. I don't want to believe in anything. I don't want to hear anything. I just need to exist. I just need to be distracted. And they're the ones that have really got my back in terms of anything. Like if I don't feel like replying to a message, they'll know, but they don't also take it to heart, the fact that I don't reply or I'm not calling them back, because they know that I'm going through something. And if there's anything that I'm really glad that I found, I'm glad that I found that group where I can just sort of be myself around. I can just, with no judgment as well. And I think that's a really important part.
Very important. You are blessed.
Yes.
You are rich. Do you know you are wealthy, abundant in that which brings the greatest amount of happiness? It's not money.
No.
It's these depth of connections that we have with other people, not just our romantic partners, do you know, but our friendship system. In this country, in the United States, people are dying of loneliness because they don't even have one confidant. Large numbers of people don't have anybody that they feel that they can completely be themselves with. They could call at 2 or 3 a.m. if they were having a very difficult time, and that person would really show up and be there for them in a loving, caring way. And I think that this is a serious challenge of our time, is to deal with the epidemic of loneliness. People are literally dying of loneliness, and it's terrible.
Yeah, no, it's a really scary thing. And I couldn't have been more blessed to find that person. I'm really upset that she lives halfway across the world from me, but somehow that works out best for the times that we getting to talk, and when we can really be real with each other, because it's midnight for me, but it's 2:00 in the afternoon for her. And yeah, there's always that balance, which I think is just an amazing thing. And I'm really glad that I got to see her last year for the 3rd time. So no, I'm really glad. But yeah, it's a really scary thought, the idea that that's one, some people don't even have that one person that they can really rely on. I think it's such a terrible thought to have.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when it comes to marriage, and that's a whole other different type of commitment, how would you go ahead and define what a marriage is and what sort of different components take in when it comes to being in a committed and loving relationship?
A marriage is a commitment, a strong, sturdy commitment that you're going to join your lives together. And the way I see the commitment nowadays evolving is we are committed to healing past hurts. We are committed to loving and caring for each other and supporting each other to meet our life goals. We are committed to, as much as possible, meet each other's needs and to use everything that the relationship throws up as a growth opportunity. This is a personal growth marriage, very different from the kind of marriages in the 1800s that were just economic. You know, I'm going to bring a cow and chickens and you bring goat and some more chickens and we'll put it together, because people were so much in survival in the early part of the 1800s, then the early 1900s. with the Industrial Revolution and people weren't near survival so much, then marriage was for love. It wasn't just an economic arrangement. But that, I believe, is an outmoded form now. And we need a brand new, shiny model of marriage. And if for those people who marriage is just not in the cards, then they can say this is their shiny new model of committed romantic partnership. But this is a good deal, that we're going to bring out the best in each other, that we're going to be each other's healer, that we're going to be a catalyst for each other to grow into who we can each become. And I just think that people are not availing themselves of the extraordinary opportunity that marriage can be and that committed partnership could be. Because when you seal that container, every piece of unfinished business is going to show itself to you. You can try your best to submerge it and hide it and cover it up and deny it, but it's going to keep coming back. So my point of view is if it's going to keep coming back, you might as well deal with it. Develop some curiosity and wonder about what the heck is going on here that this issue keeps coming back again and again and again. And really take a look at that. Some of it is very old material from childhood that we're still trying to get peaceful about.
Yeah.
And our partner is going to bang into that sore spot. If we've got unfinished business from childhood and wounds from childhood, opportunity to have a corrective experience. If we have limiting beliefs about how far we can go in this lifetime, do you know, our partner may know our strengths even better than we know them ourselves, that we may have limited beliefs about ourselves. Our partner can be our believing eyes and say, no, I think you could do that. You're intelligent enough to do that. You're brave enough to do that. Give it a go. What's the worst thing can happen here?
Yeah.
The worst thing is if you deny yourself the opportunity to give it a try.
That's true. No, that's true. I think like one of the things that I've really learned about marriage is like my whole family grew up with, okay, we marriage of convenience because it's a partnership between both my mom and my dad sort of coming together and, you know, realizing that there's a life that they want to have that the both of them can give each other. And I think that's where my model of marriage sort of came in, where it's not so much as, yes, it's about love and it's about, you know, cherishing so many different moments and it's about sweet moments, and it really is. But at the same time, it is a partnership between two people. It is knowing that this person brings out the best in you and that whatever you don't do or you aren't knowing, they're knowing, they know. And you can just be both of them. It's like yin and yang, for example, like what the other one doesn't have, the other one does have. And if one person has a question, the other person has the answer, or at least is able to try to rectify how to find the answer for that. And it's grown up as a very, like some people say that that's a very dull way of thinking about marriage, because you marry someone that because you love them. And yes, it's important, but the way that I've seen it is that I'm always like, yes, you marry for love, but you also marry because there's something in them that brings out the best in you. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you want. You want someone who's going to, at least for what I know of it, is you want someone to bring out the best in you. You want to be that best person. You also want them to see the faults that you have, but also not shy away from the faults that you have. Because I think the shying away is where it can get tricky, especially if you have like past relationships or previous relationships that you were hurt from. You're still healing from that at the same time while also being in that relationship with them.
Absolutely. Some of the wounds that we're recovering from were not childhood wounds. Some of them are adult wounds, and they can be very painful wounds when we opened our heart to a previous lover and they took advantage or exploited us or abandoned us, and we are recovering from that. And we have to learn to trust again and to risk again. And I'm absolutely with you. When you were talking about your parents' marriage, about the marriage of convenience, there's still a lot of those today, that people are choosing the comfort and security rather than the risk and adventure. And there's a lot to be said for comfort and security. Everybody has to have a certain component of that for their relationship to be successful. You have to have that as a foundation, but to have your relationship arrested development in that area is missing a big opportunity. The growth model has some discomfort in it. When you risk, you're going to feel frightened, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to have doubts, but that would be good for us as long as it's not too overwhelming. The anxiety needs to be, a bit at the edge of our comfort zone. We don't blast through it. We gently make that comfort zone a little bit bigger at a time. And so there is some tough love that is required, because it can be too much of a good thing. If it's too much the sweet strawberry slush, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love everything about you, and you're just fine the way you are, it's not a growth model. People can get a little complacent and lazy. When you have a growth model with tremendous respect, a mirror is held up. If you're doing things, believing things that are in your own way, about your own limitations, and our partner is in our life in a growth marriage to goose us along our growth path, to give us a nudge, not shoving, no force. That would be disrespectful. But to be a stand for, you're bigger than you think, you're more creative than you think, you're more emotionally intelligent than you think, you can do these things. Set your sights high. When my husband and I do our workshops, we're always trying to invite our students into going for the gold. Let your imagination be big. Vision a grand life for yourself, a wonderful career that you enjoy. A very beautiful romantic partnership that's a growth-inducing relationship that will last a lifetime. One of the findings when people research romantic partnerships, when people talk about when was the best time of your relationship, is when they were falling in love and they were discovering who each other were. It was so exciting. And then it's downhill after that. It gets so predictable. In a growth model, you're always on the edge of your own growth. So even though my husband and I have been together for 55 years, because we've been living a growth model, the whole time we've been together, it's still very fresh and vibrant. We're never bored.
No, and I think that's what it is as well. Like for me, I was always dating to marry. There was no dating because I'm lonely or because I just want someone. I was very much in that idea of, okay, I can be fine completely on myself because there's things that I need to go through and that I need to build within myself so that I'm ready for that person to come in. And then when they did come in, I'm very much like, okay, this is exactly what I'm here for. It's exactly what I did all that work for, is because that I do want to be better for them. And I do want to be better to be able to know that, okay, if they're needing me, they can rely on me. But if I'm needing them, I can rely on them. And we're both very much in that right from the beginning. We very much had that discussion right from the get-go that this is not going to be something that is just in our free time, that we're not just dating when we're free, but we're also going to be there completely together when we're needing each other, and that we can both rely on each other. And this is the first adult relationship I've also been in, which is really interesting because the previous relationship, I was very young, very much focused on, okay, they like me, I like them, that's the only thing that matters. But now there's that idea of, okay, I want to grow. They also want to grow. We can grow together. We can figure out our lives together. We can have an actual plan rather than just dreams and ambitions that sort of come in every now and then. It can actually be a reality, but we have to do it together.
That's an excellent contract. And people grow and change over the years. And I always encourage them, vision some more and write a new vision and a new action plan and make a new contract. My husband and I renew our old vows and add fresh ones on Valentine's Day and on our wedding anniversary because our needs change. One year I came to him and I said, this was several years back, I can't think of anything new to add on top of all the vows that we've already taken. And he said, I have one for you. And I could not figure for the life of me what he was going to come up with. And he said, I would like you to vow to take better care of yourself. You tend to overwork. He was right. I was a bad workaholic at the time. And he said, I really want you to take better care of yourself because I know when you do, you'll have more to give to me and you'll be a happier camper. And I did vow to take better care of myself. Compassionate self-care is what we called it, responsible self-care. And it definitely was good for both of us.
Yeah, no, that's such a great way of looking at it as well, where you sort of promote each other's growth. It's not like, okay, this is something I can do. You got to think of what you can do. But it's also like the comfort in your level of communication where you're both able to suggest things to another without the other one really being like hot-headed about it or really getting angry about it or really getting frustrated. And I think that's the big thing as well when it comes to being in a committed relationship is the fact that the other person can't be afraid to give constructive criticism. Otherwise, that's not going to work.
We need it. We need it. And how much love and care they do it with, how much respect they do it with. But they may see things that we're completely blind to.
Yeah.
And we need to get shaken sometimes. And we may get very huffy about it when they bring it to our attention as you're being critical and you're being judgmental. But, you know, it may be a really essential life lesson that this person is in our life to bring to us. And we want to kill the messenger.
Exactly. Yes.
But it may be the secret of life for us. And my husband and I both had a tremendous amount of reactivity. His reactivity, and he was constantly triggered as a younger man. You're trying to control me, trying to tell me what to do. I'm not going to be controlled by anybody. Even when I was trying to have a light touch and just ask for something that I wanted, he had big control issues. My stuff was different. I'm not saying I didn't have any control issues, but it was all about being abandoned. You know? Mm-hmm. Don't ever freeze me out with the violence of silence because it's like being confined to solitary confinement for me. I hate it. I'd rather you call me a dirty name than give me the violence of silence. And we had to play it out for a long time to realize that it was wounds left over from our family of origin. And we were butting heads about don't leave me, don't forget me, don't ignore me was my sore spot, and don't tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm my own agent in my life. Well, we fought for a period of time so hard and so unskillfully. I'm telling you, we were nasty. We were mean-spirited. We were manipulative. We were therapists at the time. We would get so triggered that we would just lose our composure. We were not cool. But the signature strength for both my husband and myself is we're terrific students. We paid attention and we learned a lot, and we wrote it down. And we wrote a book called The End to Arguing. Some of the people see the title of this book and they don't even think that there is a possibility to end arguing. And some people don't think it would be a good idea to end arguing. So I have to explain it's all right to have differences of opinion and to debate your differences of opinion. You can even be fierce and strong and passionate about the way you interchange your differences of opinion. Where you cross the line into arguing is when you try to coerce the other person to changing their point of view or changing their behavior. Now that's grabbing too much ground. That is disrespectful when you're trying to change somebody into somebody that they're not, with all the manipulative means that we use. Yes. Sharp edge on our voice and a frown on our face and turning our body language away from them. And, the message between the lines is, how could you be so stupid and uninformed? And well, we want to cut out all of that manipulative stuff because it's all based on fear.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very true.
We have 101 valuable lessons to end arguing. And you could still have your point of view, and you could still have your truth, and you can still have your style in being in the world. You just make a big enough space for the two different points of view and the two different ways of being in the world to peacefully coexist with a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a very great book and lots of recommendations within that book to sort of end arguing. And I think we sort of forget that arguing is very much because two people have two different ways, two different values, different beliefs, and even two different expectations as well as to how they expect the other person to react. And, when we're talking about this today, the way that you're talking to me and that I have to quickly think of something back, we always have that urge to listen just to say something else or to think about our next argument point rather than really listening to the other person. And that's on our own expectations. When I'm doing it for work, I'm listening to what you're saying and quickly thinking of something I can come up with to add to have a little rebuttal of a question to have for you. But when we're doing it in a relationship, it can be very, very detrimental on how the other person is going to react to the information that one person is trying to share. And it's really difficult at most times to, I think, let go of expectations of the other person and let go of let go of also the acknowledgement of the different values and beliefs that both partners really have. Because I think when we both have very different values, we forget that, okay, we also have to respect the other person's values, not just make them respect ours.
That's exactly right. And one of the very important points that we make in the book is communication is key to a successful relationship. But when people think about communication, they think about speaking. They think about being articulate and finding the right words to express what they're feeling and needing and what they're thinking. The other half, which is equally important component of communication, is listening. And if you want a highly successful relationship, you have to become a blue ribbon listener, a champion listener, a black belt listener, and really take in what the other person is saying. Look at their facial expression. Look at their body language. Listen to their tone of voice. Have your pores open with committed listening. To take in. It's a very spiritual practice when you do talking meditation, that you let in the message that the other person sends to you and you be with it and then respond to their communication. It's a depth of connection that great relationships are made of when there is deep listening going on.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very true. I wanted to know when it comes to emotional intelligence. Now that's a big one. So what role does emotional intelligence play in a marriage, and how important is that when it comes to the arguments that come through?
It's of critical importance.
Mm-hmm.
And in my book, emotional intelligence is more important than intellectual intelligence, because it allows for the depth of connection. One of the things that emotionally intelligent people have is empathy and compassion. They can feel with another person. They can rejoice with another person. They can have sympathetic, empathetic joy when another person is happy. And they can suffer with when the other person is troubled, sad, grieving, a loss, frightened. They can be with that person. When you can open your heart that much to be with another person, that's a clear sign that you're emotionally intelligent. Another sign of emotional intelligence is that you can regulate your feelings so that you can put thought between feeling and speaking, or put thought between feeling and behaving, so that you may feel like you want to rip their hair up at the roots, but you don't do it, either physically or verbally, you know, and that you hold on to yourself. The Buddhists call it keeping your seat. You don't get thrown off of your seat. You keep your composure. You listen. You check in with yourself to see why you are so emotionally activated that you do want to rip their hair out by the roots. You see what it is that's being triggered in you and take responsibility for that, because that will help you calm yourself down, that you're not a helpless victim of this perpetrator who's making you feel so bad. Do you know, it's a very high level of responsibility. People who are emotionally intelligent take a very high level of responsibility. They are not victims. Mm-hmm. They know they have something to do with it. If there's a breakdown, it's not nice and neat like 50-50. It may be 40-60, 70-30, 80-20, or 90-10. Do you know? But we look for the part that we have to play in the breakdown, because that's the responsible thing to do, is to take our part. That sets up an energetic where the other person is more likely to look at their part and take responsibility for their part. And then a very healing, connected conversation can take place where they have a deeper understanding of each other's triggers. And that is a signature strength of emotionally intelligent couples.
Okay. No, it makes a lot of sense. I think when I think about emotional intelligence, it's also very much like a lot of the misconceptions on emotional intelligence is that you're basically a pushover, or you're basically one that you're reading so much about people that you don't know how to react yourself, because you're always trying to please other people and making sure that they're okay before you're taking care of yourself. And I think I recently saw that in a video that I found. And when it comes to emotional intelligence, is the fact that so many people are regarded as, oh, because they're empathetic, because they feel for people, they also are okay with being dragged along in every which way. They're like, okay, I'm going to say yes to, we can go out to this place for dinner, even though I don't feel like it, but I know that they feel like it and I don't care as much. So I'm going to let them have that. But I don't think that's emotionally intelligent. That's the true definition of emotional intelligence as well. I think there's a huge, especially what you're talking about as well, that doesn't seem like anything to do with being emotional intelligent.
It's not. Emotionally intelligent people know what they need, negotiate for their needs, and when they choose someone as an intimate partner, like a lover, a spouse, committed partnership, or a dear friend, the contract, spoken and unspoken, is my needs are as important as your needs. Not less important than your needs. Yeah. Not more important than your needs. We have a contract with each other where we honor each other's needs as much as possible. Emotionally intelligent people are not pushovers. They're not meek. Do you know? They speak in their own behalf. They're assertive. They know what they want. They speak up about what they want. They let go and know that they can't get everything they want. Do you know? They're smart enough to know that you have to go public with your needs and tell people what you need, help them, support them so that they can meet your needs as much as possible, but they don't demand that their needs be met. They don't issue commands. They invite people to meet their needs and assure them that it's going to be reciprocal. We are in this together to meet each other's needs as much as possible.
Yeah. No, and I think that's just as important. I really think it's important to understand that difference as well, and understand the fact that there is that balance between, okay, you can get things that you want, but you have to say that you want something. Because in a relationship, I think we were talking about this a couple of years ago as well. People are not mind readers in a relationship, and you can't sort of go ahead and be like, I'm making sure that they know that I'm feeling upset, or I'm giving little hints as to I'm upset. No, you have to actually communicate the fact that you are feeling upset, and you have to actually know that you are saying that
in a responsible way.
Yes.
Not in a blaming, shaming, critical way.
Yeah.
You talk about your own experience. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling disappointed. No scolding about you're making me feel bad.
No.
Not emotionally intelligent. One of the characteristics of being emotionally intelligent is being able to speak the truth of your experience without the blame and judgment. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for a lot of us who didn't have that modeled in our family.
No.
And especially to be willing to get vulnerable. One of the reasons that some of the people have the wrong idea about emotional intelligence and think that they're pushovers, and they're a wuss or they're a pussy, and they're so caring that they get walked over, that they're a doormat. That's not true. They are very caring. They're empathic. They're compassionate. They're generous of spirit. They're strong in caregiver. They're excellent lovers. But they're also strong in warrior. They're just as strong in warrior. So they're assertive. They can take discomfort and pain. They can draw boundaries clearly and say, no, that won't work for me. Mm-hmm. If somebody tries to take too much and exploit them or take advantage, if the relationship is not reciprocal, they will speak in their own behalf. They won't stuff it. They won't be conflict avoidant and swallow it down and accumulate all of these incompletions where they finally explode. They're regularly dealing with things as they come up. And there's a whole chapter in the End to Arguing about staying current and not letting things accumulate. If we're conflict phobic, it's not emotionally intelligent because it will come back to bite you on the rear end every time. Those things don't go away. You try to hide them, you try to put them aside, but they keep coming back, and they do accumulate. The incompletions that haven't been dealt with, that we've been busy avoiding, they will present themselves again and again till they get attention. And sometimes they've gotten so infested, they've gotten so infected that you got a big mess that you have to clean up. It's better if you stay on top of it on a regular basis. And there's a chapter about don't check out, check in. Check in with yourself, see what you're feeling, and then check in with your partner. And share in a very responsible way on a regular basis. I think once a week is minimum. Every day is better. And a lot of people go weeks and weeks and they don't check in. You can't expect your relationship to get up to the thrive zone if you don't do it.
That's true. That's true. Now, we were talking about expectations a little bit earlier. In our practice and habit section, I'd love to talk about some recommended practices for couples to navigate the differences in expectations within a relationship.
I'm thanking you for asking the question. As some people believe that expectations are premeditated resentments.
Mm-hmm.
They think expectations have a bad reputation. I don't, but I know a lot of people do. They are from the mindset of keep your expectations low. Then you won't be so disappointed. I don't think that's emotionally intelligent to keep your expectations low. I'm always encouraging the people that I work with in counseling, my readership and my students in my classes, let your expectations be really big. Go for the gold. Have a grand vision for your life and your relationship as long as you have an intention to match it. You don't expect anybody to bring this glorious vision to you on a silver tray. You earn your way in.
Mm-hmm.
You get out of infatuation stage. You don't have romantic myths running you, like everything's going to be fine because we love each other. There's some work involved. You realize that you need to grow some qualities like commitment, resilience, courage, compassion to be eligible for a great relationship. It doesn't just happen by wishing and hoping. That you do the work, you do your own work, that you practice being a caregiver, you practice being generous of spirit, you practice making some sacrifices, you do give some things up with a good attitude, not a resentful attitude. You do practice being a warrior, where you draw your boundaries and say, no, hon, that won't really work for me. No, I don't really want to go. You go by yourself, and you practice being a wanderer. The archetypal wanderer isn't joined at the hip with their partner. They do the dance of love and freedom, where they come and they're close, and then they let go, and they're two unique individuals. They may have activities that they enjoy that the other person doesn't enjoy, and they wouldn't give up those activities. I didn't play tennis, and for many years, my husband's favorite sport was tennis. I thought it was wonderful that he played. I'm a fanatic about dancing. Dancing is not his trip, but I dance for 1 full hour every day of my life. It keeps me vibrant and happy. That's my happy place. And I told you I'm going on a trip, and he's not going. I'm flying off to Africa this week. It's very, very important to master the tasks in every archetypal stage, to leave the innocence and to have the mature love, to practice caregiving, to become a great lover, to practice warrior, to be good in our boundaries and to be able to handle some discomfort, and to become a wanderer and be a unique individual separate from our partner from time to time. And when we have mastery in all of these stages, which is a piece of work, we pop through the magician. It looks like magic because you're just in the flow of life. Things seem to be so easy, but it's because we've earned our way in. And this magician stage is the co-creative stage. That is the highest level of development that we can achieve. And we have supported each other in our growth through all of these stages, that we get to live there pretty consistently, where we are practicing giving our gifts to the world, that are unique gifts that only we can give. From our life experience, we have learned what's really important, what has meaning, and that becomes our exquisite contribution to our community.
Yeah. And I think, we definitely do forget about our own selves when we get into relationship. I think that's, especially in the first couple of months or the first month or so, we forget, okay, I want to spend every single day with this person. And I know a lot of my friends, when they first start into relationships, even for me as well, we really got so wrapped up in being with them that we forgot about the other friendships that were still around. We forgot about ourselves from time to time. We forgot about so many different things. And then once that settles down, the infatuation stage really does settle down very, for some people, like they call it the honeymoon stage in a relationship, where you're so enwrapped in being with them all the time and talking to them all the time. And it's a great stage. It's a stage like a lot of people say that they want to be in for as long as possible. And that's great. But I think there's also that stage where you're not so completely obsessed with them. That is just as, is even more important, I would say, because that's the stage where, okay, do you really see yourself being with them? Or is it because they're sending you a cute text or a nice phone call every now and again, or seeing you or bringing you flowers? Like, when then that stuff doesn't happen, are you still going to care about them just as much?
I think you have your finger right on it, that it is a magnificent stage. We are drugged. Do you know, this is nature's gift?
Yeah.
She's drugging us, and we have all these endorphins and oxytocin running through our bloodstream. Do you know, this is the love cocktail? This is nature's trick to keep the species going, that will keep procreating little humans. But everybody has to leave the Garden of Eden. Everybody has to eventually, some people get a year or more out of that. Yeah. And I tell people, don't be getting married or moving in together during the infatuation stage. You're drugged. You're not thinking straight. You're not even seeing who that person is. You're filling in all the unknowns with Prince Charming and Princess Charming. I myself did not follow this advice. I moved in, my husband and I moved in together when we were still in infatuation stage. We didn't know each other. But you have to have the fall, do you know, the fortunate fall, where you wake up one day and you look over at them and say, oh my, you're not who I thought I was. I didn't get prized after all. You start seeing their shadowy aspects. And that's good. You know, it's disconcerting, it's upsetting, but it's a good thing. And then the first thing I thought after that was, well, I'm not the perfect prize either. Then you roll up your sleeves and you get to work and you find out who you two really are.
Yeah.
And the sooner you do that, the better. We sometimes, when we're teaching, we call that putting your worst foot forward. You know, some of the people in my field don't think you should do that. They think for the first several months you're together, you should keep your image up. And I say, you know, right from the time you put your profile up on the dating sites and when you meet each other, start revealing the real person there, and make a contract early on that you two are going to get out from under your images early on. It's more time effective. You don't waste time being with people who just sent their image to the relationship. You get to know each other better earlier.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think I did that with my partner as well, where we literally just, I think the first date, we were really talking really deep conversations about family and talking about, you know, the crazy, wacky, both sides of our family that we are, and trying to figure out, okay, how we're going to be adults outside of them and outside of seeing them. And yeah, so we were really straight from the bat, really sharing about the deep conversations about what we both want in a relationship as well. So we dove straight into it with the two of us.
Good start. Get right down to it. The very first week that I ever knew my husband, I said to him, I think I freaked him out. I said, I'm already starting to fall for you. If you do not want to have children, I want you to tell me right away, because I'm committed to having children. And he said, yeah, one day. Yeah, I do want to have kids one day. And I said, look, you tell me the truth. If you want a little stay-at-home milk and cookies mom, I'm not your gal, because I want to have children, but I'm going to have a career. Will you please be honest with me right now? And he said, yes, I would like my wife to work. I would like my wife to have a career. And I said, okay, thank you for being honest with me. And I just trust him because I had been with somebody before him who didn't want to have kids. I took it for granted that he wanted to have children, and I didn't really boldly ask. And I let myself fall for him and stay with him for a very long time. And he was not about committed partnership, and he was not about being a parent. So I didn't want to make that mistake again. And, later on, my husband, Charlie, thanked me for being bold and frank with him right up front. Although it kind of freaked him out a little bit, he admired it because he saw the kind of relationship I wanted to have. Let's just be honest with each other. And he wanted that kind of a relationship too.
No, I think that's important. It's just as important to be honest with them. And I think I've learned that as well. Now, this leads us really well into the open mic section of the show. This is a perfect chance for you to share something that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be related to what we're talking about today. And in the last minute or so, I'd love to give you the floor and share what's on your mind.
I'm passionate about people allowing their imagination to be big.
Okay.
I think people settle for less than is really available to them. I think that there is a lot of research to back this up. This isn't just Linda Bloom speaking. That we only use a small fraction of our intellectual capacity, our emotional intelligence, our athletic ability, our creativity, that we have limiting beliefs about ourselves and what we can experience and what we can contribute, and we hold ourselves back. One of the things that I am committed to, I'm on a mission about, is when I have an opportunity to reach people, I invite them, let your imagination be big. Have a grand life. You are not defined by your past. If you had a difficult beginning in your past, trauma, maybe you had an alcoholic parent, maybe you had a drug-addicted parent, maybe you had a mentally ill parent, maybe you had a rageaholic parent, you may not have had childhood charming. You may have had health problems. You may have had financial problems. You may have had career problems. Okay, we all have them. If you live long enough, you're going to have the 10,000 sorrows and the 10,000 joys. But to make something beautiful of your life, and if each person took responsibility for that, it would make for a much greater world, a world with much more loving, generous of spirit people in it. And so I particularly don't want them to waste the opportunity of a committed partnership to help them flourish in growing into becoming the best version of themselves that they can be. That's what I'm passionate about.
And I think that's a great thing to be passionate about and to talk about and promote, because I think we sort of lose sight in our trauma that we forget that, okay, that's someone else's trauma that's put onto us. It's not our own situation. No matter if you had childhood, especially childhood trauma, that sort of bring on to ourselves as well. And I think that is definitely something that, well, we probably definitely needs its own whole episode with you to come back on and we can talk about that. But yeah, I think it's such a great way to sort of mention the fact that you are not your own, you are not someone else's trauma. You are so much more than that. And to not get lost in the fact that, okay, yes, you've had a hard life or you've grown up in a really difficult situation, but you can actually turn it around. And that we sort of lose sight in the fact that while we're healing, we're also not growing at the same time. So yeah, no, I think that's a perfect way to end the show today. Perfect little last message and you heard it here from Linda Bloom herself. So thank you so much, Linda, for joining me on the show today. If our audience would like to know a little bit more about you, is there a place that I can send them?
Our website is www.bloomwork.com. It's singular, BLOOMWORK.com. They're all kind of free stuff on our site. We've got recommended reading there. We've got over 600 blogs that were posted on Psychology Today with over 10 million hits. People love to read the blogs. We've got many podcasts and interviews on our YouTube channel. And there's free ebooks that people can download from our website. So when people visit our website, they'll see where we're teaching, and they might want to take a class with us.
Perfect. No, I'll definitely have that down in the description box below if anyone's wanting to find out a little bit more. And also go and check out a lot of the communication that Charlie and Linda have both sort of explained throughout, and also find the book as well, because there's multiple books that they've both written together, and I can't wait for you guys to go and see them. Thank you so much, Linda, for joining me on the show today. It was amazing getting to talk about this and to also get to hear different points of view when it comes to marriage.
And thank you for the juicy questions. They were great jumping off places for me to make the points I wanted to make.
That's perfect. I'm glad that they were exactly what you were hoping for. Now, I hope you guys learned just as much as I did when it comes to marriage and the different models that is now available when it comes to marriage. I'll see you all in the next episode.
You've been listening to All Together, the Family Science Insights podcast, produced by the Family Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people find it so that we can grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at fa.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Dina Sargeant. Thanks for tuning in.